Imagine walking through Philadelphia, looking down, and finding a mysterious tile in the asphalt with a message about resurrecting the dead on Jupiter. Yeah, that actually happened. These are called the Toynbee tiles, actual physical mosaic tiles embedded secretly into busy city streets across America. Someone did this. We still don't really know who. The tiles started showing up in the 1980s, maybe earlier, in Philadelphia, New York, Washington, D.C., and even 2 cities in South America. This was not one bored weekend project. Every single tile carries some version of the same wild message. Toynbee idea in movie 2001 Resurrect Dead on Planet Jupiter. That's it. No name, no website, no explanation. Fun fact, the tiles are surprisingly well made. Layers of linoleum, tar paper, and asphalt felt, somehow surviving millions of car tires rolling over them for decades. So who is Toynbee? The tiles seem to reference Arnold Toynbee, a real British historian who wrote about civilizations rising and falling. He never said anything about Jupiter, though. The movie 2001 part likely refers to Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey. The tile maker apparently mashed a historian and a sci-fi film into one cosmic resurrection theory. Fun fact, Ray Bradbury's short story, The Toynbee Convector, also gets floated as a reference. So the tile maker might have been mixing Bradbury, Kubrick, and Toynbee into one smoothie of chaos. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. Some tiles weren't just short messages. Some were enormous, covered in dense conspiracy rants attacking journalists, Jews, and the Soviet Union. These longer tiles named specific journalists by name, accusing them of suppressing the tile maker's ideas. This person clearly felt silenced and responded by vandalizing major American intersections. So researchers started investigating. The leading suspect, and most investigators now agree, is a Philadelphia recluse named James Egan Hance. But here's the twist. He died in 2003. Hance was a Philadelphia cable repairman. Quiet, reclusive, apparently obsessed with ideas about death, resurrection, and humanity's cosmic destiny. Your average Tuesday, really. Investigators matched the tile rants to a specific address, a house in South Philadelphia. Hance had lived there. His house was literally full of tile materials and related writings when examined. Fun fact, Hance apparently had a trapdoor under his front porch that led directly onto the street, which might be exactly how he planted tiles without anyone ever seeing him. The theory is he'd slide tiles under the asphalt from below, attaching them to the undercarriage of parked cars, which would then drive away and press the tiles into the road surface. Absolutely unhinged engineering. Think about that for a second. One guy alone managed to secretly install dozens of tiles across multiple major American cities spanning 2 decades, without a single witness. A 2011 documentary called Resurrect Dead, the mystery of the Toynbee tiles followed investigators trying to crack the case. It won the Sundance Jury Prize. A floor tile won a film award. Only in America. Fun fact, the documentary filmmakers actually tracked down a neighbor of Hance who remembered him, and confirmed he was deeply strange, obsessive, and very, very angry at the media. But here's the catch. Hance was never officially confirmed as the maker. The identification is strong circumstantial evidence, but it remains a theory, not a proven fact. The mystery technically stays open. Now let's talk about the actual message, because dismissing it as pure nonsense misses something genuinely fascinating. What did this person actually believe? The core idea seems to be humanity should colonize Jupiter and somehow, using Toynbee's ideas about civilizations, resurrect every human who ever died there. All of them. Ever. This isn't just random word salad. It has internal logic. It's a fully formed, deeply personal cosmological belief system. A religion of one, expressed in asphalt. Absolutely wild. Some tiles also mention a group called the Philadelphia Cable Access Television Association, an entity Hance supposedly created himself to broadcast his ideas. Nobody ever aired his show. Fun fact, Hance reportedly also mailed his manifesto to celebrities, politicians, and media companies for years before turning to tiles. Decades of rejection drove him underground, literally. By the time the tiles were widely noticed in the 1990s, nobody had any idea who made them. Journalists, urban explorers, and ordinary pedestrians were completely baffled. The internet went feral. New York City had tiles too, right in the middle of Times Square. Some were destroyed before anyone could properly document them. We lost evidence forever under the tires of yellow cabs. Washington, D.C. also had tiles near Capitol Hill, which, honestly, feels very on brand for a place full of people who think they know the secret to fixing humanity. 2 tiles were also reportedly found in South American cities, Kansas City and... Wait, that's not South America. Boston? No, actually, Rio de Janeiro and maybe Santiago. The jury is still debating those. Fun fact, The South American tiles, if real, would completely upend the one guy with a tunnel theory, because Hans reportedly never left Philadelphia. So either he had help, or there's a copycat. And here's the part that makes researchers genuinely uncomfortable. After Hans died in 2003, new tiles kept appearing. Either he had a protege, or someone else entirely is carrying on the legacy. Some investigators believe a small group of devotees adopted the tile tradition after Hans. People who genuinely shared his belief system. A secret tile cult in Philadelphia in the 2000s. Fun fact, there's actually an active online community of tile hunters today. People who photograph, document, and map every Toynbee tile they find. It's basically bird watching, but for asphalt conspiracies. Let's zoom out a second. Why do we care so much? The Toynbee tiles hit something deep. A mysterious message, a hidden author, and a completely sincere belief system that makes zero mainstream sense. It's also a story about invisibility. Hans spent decades screaming his ideas of the world, and the world ignored him completely. The tiles were his last resort to be seen, and it worked, decades after his death. The tiles have anti-Semitic content in some of the longer rants, which is important to name clearly. The mystery is fascinating, but the ideology behind it is not something to romanticize. Fun fact, one tile was discovered directly preserved at the corner of 15th and Market Streets in Philadelphia, and it's now treated almost like a historic landmark. A conspiracy tile with historic preservation status. Philadelphia city officials have had to make real decisions about what to do when construction tears up streets with tiles in them. Do you preserve a vandal's work, or pave it over? Wild policy debate. Some tiles were deliberately saved and relocated to museums and archives. So pieces of a reclusive man's deeply strange obsession now sit in proper museum storage. Art is wild. Now here's a question investigators kept asking. How did he do it technically? The tiles are complex. They required heat, pressure, and precise placement. This wasn't a hobby. This was craft. Fun fact, the tiles are made of layers of asphalt and tar-soaked materials that bond perfectly to road surfaces over time. Essentially, he invented his own covert street installation medium. Accidentally genius. The hiding method, sliding tiles under cars, letting traffic press them into place, is so brilliantly low-tech, it almost hurts. No power tools, no crew, just physics and patience. What makes the Hans theory the most credible is a specific piece of evidence. A typed manifesto matching the tile text was traced to a typewriter found at his address. That's hard to argue with. But here's what nobody can fully explain. How did Hans, a working-class cable repairman with no car, regularly install tiles in New York and Washington, D.C.? Did he take the bus? Amtrak? With tile supplies? Fun fact, some researchers think Hans did have occasional helpers, people from his neighborhood who knew about the tiles but never spoke publicly. A neighborhood conspiracy of silence in South Philly. Researchers have noted something poetic and sad. The tiles in Times Square, the most visible place on Earth, were mostly destroyed before anyone paid attention. His loudest statement, silenced by foot traffic. Since the documentary, interest in the tiles exploded. Copycats, or genuine believers, have placed Toynbee-style tiles in other cities. The original mystery spawned an entirely new mystery generation. Fun fact, there's an entire subreddit dedicated to tracking and photographing Toynbee tiles. Urban explorers post new finds regularly. The hunt never really ended, it just moved online. Here's the deeply human part of this whole story. Hans wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He wasn't connected. And yet his work has been in documentaries, museums, and international news. The tiles won. What does it say about us that we ignored this man's letters, rejected his TV show, dismissed his ideas, but once he embedded them in a road, suddenly everyone cared? That's the real question. Fun fact, Arnold Toynbee himself, the actual historian referenced in the tiles, died in 1975, years before the tiles appeared. He never knew he became the face of an asphalt resurrection cult. The tiles have been described by art critics as outsider art. Art made outside mainstream institutions by untrained creators, often driven by obsessive personal vision. Which tracks? Completely. And maybe that's the most fitting label. Not conspiracy, not vandalism, not madness. A deeply sincere, wildly original artist who just chose highways as his gallery and car tires as his curators. Today, several tiles are still visible in Philadelphia. You can actually go see them. Right now, they're just sitting there in the street, waiting for someone to finally look down and read them. Fun fact, the preserved tile at 15th and Market in Philadelphia has its own Wikipedia page, its own fan photos, and people travel specifically to photograph it. A floor tile with a fan club. The Toynbee tiles are a reminder that the most bizarre, human stories aren't in history books. They're embedded in the streets beneath our feet. We just never look down long enough to notice. One reclusive guy with linoleum and tar paper quietly changed how we think about public space, anonymity, and obsession. And he did it from under a porch in South Philly. Respect, honestly. Let's take one more look at everything we just covered.